What's the saddest way you've seen someone ruin their life? Family member. An older lady. She's lived her whole life saying things like, "Oh dear no, I'd never be able to manage that. That's far too complicated for me. I'm not clever enough for that sort of thing," when she's a perfectly intelligent, capable person. She's also fairly talented an artist, but doesn't bother much with that because she's terrible at it. It's a waste of time. As if sitting watching TV weren't a waste of time too. Basically, she's passed up every opportunity, every fun or interesting thing that's come her way for a lifetime because she's either not capable or doesn't want to be rude. She's driven away her kids by being critical and negative and putting her insecurities onto them too. Her only two friends are also people who are very negative and very down on themselves and pessimistic. It's sad, but nobody wants to be around that, and she won't hear anything about being more positive or trying new things now and then.
It's tough to see someone limit themselves like that. She's got talent, but fears hold her back. It's kind of a cycle. She's negative, her friends are negative, and it just spirals. Her kids feel that pressure too. It's a shame because life offers fun and interesting things, but she shuts them out. Watching her miss out is frustrating, especially when you know she has so much more to offer.
Nothing. Just coasting. And because of it, ending up in a dead-end job with a person they're not in love with, living in the same little town, doing the same boring things day in, day out. All because changing it was too hard each day, and those days added up. And the longer it went, the harder change became. So nothing changed. Ever. I've seen this more than once. And if things aren't getting better, they're getting worse. No one stands perfectly still in life. If nothing else, you're slowly getting older and having less and less life in front of you.
Yeah, I get it. Just stuck in a loop. It's easy to let time slip by, feeling safe in routine. I had a friend like that, always talking about wanting more but never making a move. Eventually, they just accepted it. Life continued on, but they seemed to fade a bit, you know? It's tough watching someone choose comfort over change when you know they want something different. Time keeps moving, though.
I've seen people ruin their lives in all manner of ways, many of which recur in this thread. Substance abuse, money problems, unplanned kids, bad friends, etc. However, I've seen a few people I was at school with end up with very tough lives through simple laziness. It's the silent assassin. I'm not saying their lives are terrible, but I'm thinking of intelligent, capable people who got into the habit of not doing things which pushed them out of their comfort zones. They willfully underachieved. They refused places on good college courses because they couldn't be bothered to see it out. They took easy, low-paying jobs because they didn't want to stress themselves. Carrying on like that for years, some of them have considerable debts and would have a hard time explaining to potential employers, etc., what they've been doing with their lives. It seems to me like the longer you go without pushing yourself, the more things seem harder and more stressful.
It's interesting to see how some people just settle for less. I have a friend who was really smart but never pushed himself. He chose the easy route in school, skipped out on good opportunities, and ended up stuck in a dead-end job. Now, he's in debt and can't figure out how to move forward. It's kind of a reminder that being comfortable can lead to difficulties later on. It's a tough spot to be in.
It's hard to see someone with a lot of opportunities end up getting stuck. I went to high school with a gal from a nice family in the expensive part of town. She starts seeing your average loser and gets pregnant. She sticks with him, drops out of high school to raise the kid. He is never employed and becomes increasingly abusive and controlling. She has another kid with him before it finally ends because he has moved on to the next girl. I watch as he gets that girl pregnant. He now has 6 babies from 4 different women and has never held down a job for more than a week.
It's tough to watch someone throw away their potential like that. I had a friend in a similar situation, caught up in a toxic relationship. She seemed so promising, but got sidetracked and ended up stuck. It's a reminder that choices matter, and sometimes the wrong ones can change everything. That cycle can be hard to break, especially when kids are involved. It's just sad to see someone lose their way.
A parish priest lost it all to his horse racing/gambling addiction. He was pastor of a large church, greatly admired and sincere in his faith and ministry. This priest would spend every available hour going to the horse races or playing poker at the casino. His closest friends, mostly fellow clergy, and family couldn't deter him from his obsession with gambling. It's a shame because he kept his vows of celibacy, didn't drink, and was a positive role model in every other way. But he finally succumbed to the horse races, placing huge bets, $300 per race, 9 races per day, and losing it all.
It's wild how someone can seem so put together and then fall apart over something unexpected. This priest had it all: respect, faith, and a community that looked up to him. His friends tried to help but couldn't pull him back from the edge. It's a reminder that people can struggle in ways we don't see. You never really know what someone is dealing with behind closed doors.
In high school, there was a girl who was brilliant, best in all classes, and generally quite a nice and shy person. She came from a gypsy family who are generally rough and don't value education. In our final year, we saw her less. She ended up not showing up to final exams at prom. Few months, I found out her parents got her married, and couple months after she had a kid. I really think she could have done amazing. She used to always get top scores. Such a shame.
It's always tough to see talent go to waste. This girl had a bright future ahead but was pulled into a situation she couldn't control. It's interesting how family expectations can overshadow personal dreams. I wonder how she feels about it all now. Hope she finds a way to still pursue her passion, even if it's different from what we imagined. Life can really take unexpected turns.
A girl I used to be friends with got into a bad relationship. She thinks she can't do any better. She cut off all her friends and blows off her family and sticks up for him. Her family hates him. He also has a kid that she takes care of the majority of the time. They'll never get married. He'll just keep taking advantage of her and live in her house because he knows he has her wrapped around his dirty finger.
It's tough to see someone you care about make such choices. She really seems to believe that this is her best option. Pulling away from friends and family is always concerning. It's like she's trapped in a cycle and can't see a way out. Watching someone settle for less is frustrating. Hopefully, she figures it out before it's too late. Sometimes, the hardest part is just being there when they're ready to listen.
My 2 old best friends left college to join a pyramid scheme, and they tried to get me to do it, and I said no. All of their friends, including me, told them not to do it. Now, one has 3 jobs and still doing the pyramid scheme, and the other is still stuck at home. And I'm the idiot for wanting to go to college and get my life together.
It's kind of wild when you see friendships change after college. My friends seemed so convinced about that scheme. I just focused on school and felt bad for them when they kept pushing. Now, looking back, I'm glad I didn't join in. Life takes different paths, and sometimes sticking to your plan pays off. Just hope they find their way too. It's a tough situation for everyone involved.
There was a pretty awful story on Reddit a few years back regarding how this guy's coworker ruined his life by trying to prank a fellow coworker at some hula/luau themed office party, but lighting their grass skirt on fire or something. I think he ended up killing someone and severely burning another person and was sent to prison for a long time all because he wanted to play some dumb prank.
That's a rough story. It's wild how a prank can go so wrong. One moment of bad judgment can change everything. It makes you think twice about what seems like lighthearted fun. People really need to be aware of the consequences of their actions. You never know how things might spiral out of control. Life doesn't always give second chances.
A friend won the lottery once. Not sure what amount, but I know it was a lot. He bought a nice big house, cars, and a boat for him and his wonderful wife about a month into enjoying his rich life. His wife left him with only a note. She took the kids and all his money. She ended up being addicted to some hardcore drugs, and my friend now lives with his parents at 40.
That's a rough situation. Winning the lottery can change lives quickly, but it doesn't always lead to happiness. Your friends seem to have everything, but it's wild how fast it can all disappear. Now he's back at his parents' place, probably more grounded but also dealing with a lot of loss. Just shows that money isn't everything and life can turn in unexpected ways.
I'm currently buying my second house with my wife, which happens to be 2 doors down from the house I grew up in. The guy we are buying it from used to be a local mechanic, who shared the business with his 2 brothers. He's a severe diabetic, always has been, and was a nice/crazy neighbor we always had fun joking about Slash with growing up. He's also a severe alcoholic. A few years ago, he went into a diabetic coma from drinking too much for over 2 months. Came out with brain damage. Can't drive anymore, drinks more than ever, can't work, can barely put sentences together. Wife left him. We always suspected some sort of abuse prior. Now he's selling the home, which we are buying, and moving into an apartment. His life has completely fallen into shambles. It's really sad.
It's wild how things change over the years. You grow up next to this guy, sharing jokes and stories, and now you see his life took such a downturn. It's tough to watch someone go from being a nice neighbor to struggling with so much. It's a reminder that life can be unpredictable. I hope he finds some peace in the next chapter, even if it's not what he imagined.
Guy I used to work with dealt with a lot of shit, largely being bipolar disorder. He was a great programmer at the small business I work at. His wife and him had some beef, and he must have felt like he needed a change. So he quit the business that we worked for. I hung out with him a couple times after, smoked a few blunts, until all he would ever do is text me to find more weed. After a couple people in my workplace told him to fuck off, he stopped talking to all of us. We are pretty sure that he quit his job and is mostly living off of military disability and credit card debt.
It's interesting how things can shift. This guy was talented and really good at his job, but personal stuff got in the way. We had some good times hanging out, but then it turned into something else. It's tough when someone pulls away like that. I guess he needed a change, but it's sad seeing someone go down that path, especially when they could have had a good support system.
I'm not sure which is worse. There's your generic Xanax alcohol or heroin mixing overdose, and then there's nothing. It is pretty shitty to see someone who, during and after high school, had a 4-year full ride scholarship to university give it up because filling out the forms was too hard. Then they get tired and unhappy working dead-end jobs until they're 30 and alone.
It's tough to watch someone throw away opportunities. I had a friend who was super smart but just never applied himself. He had everything going for him, then decided it was easier to coast through life. Now he's stuck in a job he hates, and it feels like he's just waiting for something to change. It's a reminder that sometimes we have to put in the effort to make life better.
Guy I know got divorced, stopped seeing his kids, stopped talking to his mom. Now occasionally he'll call up the kids, but it's been years since he was a father, and they don't really want anything to do with him as a father figure, at least. He spends most of his nights drinking, gambling, playing darts, going bowling, and hitting on married women. It hurts to watch. The guy is the nicest person you'll ever know, until he walks away.
It's tough seeing someone you care about go down that path. You watch them spiral, and it's like they forget the good things in life. It's not just about the fun moments anymore. It's the real connections they let slip away. I think about how he was a great friend, always there. Now he's just lost, filling the void with distractions. You hope he finds his way back, but it seems far off.
An old buddy of mine going through a rough patch needed some help. So naturally, everyone in his life helped him. He was a good-ish guy most days. Everyone housed him for 2+ weeks. At least 3 people did this for him, even me, to help him get back onto his feet. I even went on to lend the guy money, so he could get to job interviews and eat. Turns out he was a pathological liar and a narcissist. He is going through custody battle with ex-girlfriend for his baby girl because the guy doesn't pay child support or sees the kid ever. He used everyone close to him and never heard from him again. Last thing I heard was he was living with a pedophile he met on Craigslist in a basement apartment living of welfare.
It's wild how people can seem okay until you see their true colors. My buddy had a rough time, and I tried to help him out. A lot of us did. We offered him support and money. But in the end, he turned out to be someone who just used us. Now, he's in a bad situation, living with someone sketchy. Guess some people just don't change. It's a lesson learned.
Guy I used to work with got busted for prostitution. Spent the night in jail and no-showed for work the next day. He came into work the day after that claiming he had been hospitalized, but management already knew about the arrest. He had a sheriff car that was revoked and his wife left him.
That's rough. A lot can happen when you get caught up in things like that. It's wild how quick everything can fall apart. One mistake can change your life. I remember a guy from a former job who also had a rough patch, but he didn't handle it nearly as poorly. Just goes to show how personal choices can have real consequences. Some people bounce back, while others don't.
Late to this party, but I grew up with a guy that I met in secondary school. I was the one that was paired with him to show him around and whatnot. He was fine through secondary, but once college came along, his grades began to fall. He stopped showing up, and his motivation was non-existent. Turns out he has extreme depression, and instead of trying to get help, he now spends his government welfare on drugs. As the friendship group went off to university, he was left alone in a small town where he knew nobody. I still visit him occasionally, but I'm starting to resent him as he keeps trying to drag me down.
It's tough seeing a friend go downhill like that. We all want to help, but sometimes it feels like they don't want to be helped. You try to be supportive, but when their choices continue to hurt them and affect you, it gets complicated. It's a struggle balancing compassion for their situation while also protecting your own mental health. Sometimes you have to step back, even if it feels wrong.
My older sister is currently in the most toxic relationship I've ever seen. We don't see much of each other, but the time we get together is literally 99% her telling me how unhappy she is to the point of tears. However, she refuses to do something about it for God knows what reasons. Kills me seeing her literally waste years of her life so unhappy.
It's tough watching someone you care about go through that. You want to help, but it's frustrating when they can't see how bad it is for them. I've had a friend in a similar situation, always complaining but never making a change. It's hard to motivate someone who isn't ready to act. All you can do is be there for them, I guess, and hope they find the strength to choose better for themselves.
I think it's a matter of perspective. I've seen the best and brightest of my grad class go nowhere. Yet, they are perfectly content with their lives. So be it. I should not judge or let my beliefs be the reason as to why I think they're chucking their life away. In a similar vein, I've got a totally different route. My entire 20s have been a total crapshoot of career and life building. I just turned 27, have 3 years of a career under my belt, and got my degree 3 years ago. Career building has been my focus for 7 years. Can't afford to travel, can't afford to live lavishly, but paying my dues now so that when I'm older, I will be able to do those things. To some, I'm wasting my life. It's a matter of perspective.
It's interesting how people see success differently. I know friends who seem to have it all figured out but aren't satisfied. Then there are those who are happy in their simplicity. I've spent my 20s hustling, focused on work and my degree, hoping it pays off later. Some might think I'm missing out, but I get what you're saying. In the end, it's about what you value, not what others think.
My friend has been on probation since he was 13. He's been able to get clean, but relapsed recently when a friend of ours committed suicide. Then another friend OD'd in his house during that relapse. At this point, he's afraid of what he'd do if he wasn't on probation. He can't lie or get through a course of detox to pass the test and be free again. The kid is 23. He refuses to give them what they want because deep down he wants to be watched. He needs someone to be checking up on him. They've cut him every break they possibly can, but he's a mess.
It's tough seeing a friend struggle like that. I remember when I had a friend deal with something similar. He was always trying to stay on the right path, but every time he got close, something would pull him back down. It's like they don't want to let go of the pain. I guess some people really need that structure to keep them going, even if it feels restrictive. Hope he finds his way out.
My uncle who lives down the street from my family has been hoarding junk he finds on eBay and Craigslist for years. Our grandma lives with him and they can barely get through their house. Not only has he ruined his life, but now me and my family are afraid that he's going to try and start filling up our house with his junk once he runs out of room.
It's wild how some people get so wrapped up in collecting stuff. Your uncle's situation sounds tough, especially with your grandma living there too. It's not just a clutter issue, it really impacts their quality of life. I can see why your family is worried about him bringing that mess over. Sometimes you just hope they realize it's not worth it before it gets out of hand.
My father, after years of not touching heroin, had a good job, a new place in Vancouver, and 2 kids who loved him dearly despite the past, chose to try it again. It happened to be bad cut heroin, and he died almost immediately. He never got to see us get married, or meet his 4 grandchildren and be a part of their lives. Still depresses me 23 years later.
I'm really sorry to hear that. It's tough to carry the weight of something like that for so long. Losing someone you love, especially in such a tragic way, leaves a mark. It feels like there are so many moments he missed out on, and those moments can haunt you. Sometimes it's hard to find a way to move forward from that kind of pain.
Guy I know got signed for a Major League Baseball team, but hadn't started playing for them yet. Drinking and driving, got in a bad car accident. Now he's in a wheelchair, can't move anything below his neck or talk. He's pretty aware of his situation now, just trapped in a horribly mangled body.
That's a tough situation. It's hard to think about someone with so much potential ending up like that. The mix of promise and tragedy can hit hard. I hope he has a good support system. It's really sad when things take a turn like that. Life can change in an instant, and sometimes it feels really unfair.
Not just using, gambling too. I was addicted to gambling, and while it didn't ruin my whole life, I knew others where it did. Anytime after a big win you say you will stop, but you just ended up at the casino the next day to give it all back plus more. I'm thankful it only took me a year and $30,000 to learn my lesson.
It's crazy how easy it is to fall into that trap. I had a friend who went through something similar. He thought he was on a hot streak and kept chasing that win. After a while, he lost so much money that it affected his relationships and even his job. Took him a long time to recover, but he eventually got out of it. I guess some lessons hit hard.
Honestly, watching one of my parents suffer from this is heartbreaking. The cycle at this point is almost unbreakable, and I've lost hope because I'm not sure there is any way he could actually get out of it. I can't think of a single solution for him, and that hopelessness is 1/100th of what he must feel every day.
It's tough seeing someone you care about struggle. You want to help, but sometimes it feels like there's nothing you can do. It's a heavy feeling of helplessness when you realize they might not see a way out. Just being there for them can be important, even if it feels like it won't change much. Sometimes, just knowing someone cares helps in a small way.
This sounds exactly like me, even down to the two friends who are the same thing, damn. I'm only 19 though, but I feel for your family member, I really do. I often don't feel like I could possibly be able to do a lot of things, and then people tell me that of course I'm capable of doing it. It just doesn't feel like it. My friends and family members also say that I'm a fairly talented artist, but I also feel like I'm terrible at it. This is so weird, haha.
I get that feeling. It's common to doubt your skills, even when others see the talent. I had a friend in the same boat. Always thought he wasn't good enough, but everyone else loved his art. Eventually, he learned to trust their opinions a bit more. It took time, but he started to see his worth. Sometimes it just helps to keep creating and not focus too much on the outcome.
I'm going to this wedding in a month. 6 years and live together, got a pet, live comfortably and no major conflicts, but also little in common, no hobbies or interests binding them. The wedding just seems blah. He's not interested at all, talked incessantly about ending it. Then, poof. They got engaged, and now the inertia is keeping it going. Also, LPT. You can't whine about your partner for years and expect that your friends don't eventually agree and will suddenly be happy to attend your wedding.
It's wild how some people stick together despite not really connecting, huh? I had a friend like that. They ended up engaged after constantly complaining about their partner. The wedding felt awkward, especially since we all knew their issues. It's interesting how sometimes inertia just keeps things moving, even when it feels off. Makes you wonder if people really think about what they want versus what just happens.
I don't understand why people follow this blueprint of life. Most everyone I went to high school with is married or in a serious relationship, and I've had people think it's weird that I'm not married. I mean, hell, I'm only 26. My dad didn't marry until he was 31. I'm not going to go out and find a girl who will marry me just because I should be married.
It's kind of funny how everyone seems to rush into relationships. I know a few friends who are really focused on that whole timeline thing. When I was 26, I was still figuring things out. Everyone's got their own pace, and it's fine to take your time. My dad married later too, and honestly, it seems like a better plan to find the right person rather than just following what others do.
I got married because it was the right thing to do because I had 2 kids with him at 19. Spent nearly 10 years in a loveless, sexless marriage and ended up with leaving me as soon as we found out I had MS. By that point, I had no friends as he was completely controlling, a business I couldn't run properly because of my disabilities, and unbeknownst to me, he'd run up over 20,000 pounds of debt. Now he's gone. Both me and my kids are so much happier.
That's a tough situation. You make decisions thinking they're right, but sometimes things turn out differently. It's good to hear you and your kids are doing better now. Being free from a controlling situation can really change your life for the better, even with the challenges you faced. Starting fresh can seem daunting, but it sounds like you found a way to move forward.
And having kids. Fortunately, that is much less common than it used to be. Back in the day, there were a lot of couples who didn't really want kids, but did anyway because it was socially expected of them. And thus you ended up with a dysfunctional family that hated their kids, and then the family exploded in divorce in the 1970s or 1980s.
I think a lot of people felt that pressure back then. My friend's parents were a classic example. They had kids because it was expected, but the vibe at home was always off. Lots of arguments and tension. Eventually, they split up. It kind of opened my eyes to how important it is to really want kids for the right reasons. You can't just follow the crowd.
Is this really ruining their life? There are far more destructive ways. Just because you think it is a wasted life doesn't mean it is. If someone is completely content living their life that way, then who are we to judge them? I can understand the sentiment, but this is just one viewpoint. I've known plenty of people like this, but I wouldn't say their life is ruined.
I get what you're saying. I've seen friends live in ways that seem off to me, but they seem fine with it. I think we can be quick to judge others based on our own views. Sometimes, it's just about letting people live how they want. I've had my own moments where I did things others didn't agree with, but it felt right to me, you know? It's all about perspective.
I worked with two guys like this. They basically spent their entire lives in one career, one company, were both 50 years old and single, and both lived with their mothers. It was extremely sad and scary to me working with them and just hearing them talk. They had absolutely nothing going on in their lives, and they spoke about things like they were in their mid-20s. Nothing wrong with that, but it's more like it was very obvious to me that they did not seem to develop out of that mindset given how they lived their lives. It was probably the most frustrating thing about the job, and the only thing I can credit them for is being an example of something to avoid as I get older. They just became jaded and bitter, especially one of them.
That sounds pretty tough. I can relate a bit. I had a friend who never really moved on from high school vibes. Still living in the same town, same routines, always complaining about the same stuff. It was kinda eye-opening, like, I didn't want to end up like that. It made me realize how important it is to keep pushing forward and growing, otherwise, you just get stuck in a loop.
I live in the same town I grew up in. I left and actually came back. Some of us like working a simple job and living a simple life. Doesn't mean we ruined it. I walked away from a professional engineering career to work in a distribution center, and I'm happy as a clam. According to a PM from /u/fitsmeneeds, I'm a loser because I work at a DC. The but hurt is strong in that one.
It's interesting how people judge others based on their jobs. I know someone who dropped a high-paying corporate gig to run a small local shop. It's fulfilling for them, and that's what matters. Society often equates success with status, but sometimes, happiness lies in simplicity. Your decision to choose what makes you content is commendable, no matter what others say. Just keep doing your thing.
Do they have kids, though? That's the clincher, I feel. Just makes everything so much more complicated and makes change so much more difficult. I mean, nothing actually matters when you're child-free. Want to run away and start a new life, do it. Want to spend all your money drinking and gambling. As long as you're only hurting yourself, who cares? You're an adult, you can do whatever the fuck you like. But if you've got kids, nope, nope, nope. You're responsible for another life, and you must live accordingly. For the foreseeable future, you're completely trapped.
Having kids really shifts the whole perspective on life decisions. I remember a friend who wanted to travel and explore but felt stuck because of their kids. They often talked about the endless responsibilities and how it felt like they had to put their dreams on hold. It's tough to balance personal desires with family commitments. Sometimes I wonder if they ever get the chance to do what they really want.
Maybe I'm thinking too deep, but maybe they just don't see some sort of drive in life like that. And they might be perfectly happy. Just because they don't have a rocket ship life doesn't mean they ruined their life. Makes me think of when you travel. You see these really old communities. In the Caribbean, you see people fishing or collecting fruit every single day. Or in Europe, you see farmers tending the land that their family has owned for centuries. They aren't getting better, so are they getting worse?
It's interesting how life can be viewed differently. Some folks find happiness in simplicity, like those fishing or farming. They might not be chasing big dreams, but that doesn't mean they failed. It's a reminder that happiness can be found in small, everyday things. The idea that success looks different for everyone really hits home. Just because it's not a flashy life doesn't mean it lacks value.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.